Uh, I started Outdoor Odyssey to fulfill my dream. And I am still in a position in life where I have to pay back all the grace I've been given. I don't see that as exaggerated at all. I overcame a lot of obstacles in life because of people helping me. I did not become a Marine officer because I deserved to be, because I couldn't even join the Marine Corps today. My grandson will be a Marine on Saturday morning. I couldn't even compete with he and his peers because of the trouble I was in. And as you get in life, you build connections, and I was very fortunate to be a Marine, and I had beautiful connections with people, but it gave me a dream that I wanted to do something that would give back to others and whatnot and prevent me. And so my first joy of Outdoor Odyssey was these kids sitting here, veterans and educators. And mentors, hold up your hands, mentors. These are high school kids that have already given up 2 weeks at least of their life, and they come up here for Leadership Academy. We train them, and then they come back for a week with a munchkin or munchkinette and ask the counselors. It makes a difference. It changes lives. And so they're already on a good step to being givers in society, right, mentors? Good to go. They want to be. We've got to be givers, don't we? Well, we started Simplify Odyssey after I got out of the Marine Corps by accident, really. I helped a guy start a nonprofit. And in fact, Doug Schweitzer, who's here, he and Doug and I were on the first session of Simplify Odyssey. We did the second session in Vail. We did the third session in Tampa. We did the fourth session in Brooklyn, New York. And I probably told Doug at that time, we're wasting our time. We didn't have any curriculum, we didn't have any team leaders, we didn't have any mentors and whatnot. So I said, I'll take it over. I'll host it. Then I'll bring in my friends. And when you get to be an old man, your fire team becomes a platoon, it becomes a company, it becomes a regiment, it becomes a lot of other things. Yes? That's why this morning I shared with you veterans, you tell me non-applicable when you say team. Oh my gosh, I want to cry when I read that. So we started Simplify Odyssey, and I started pulling in friends or associates. And one thing about having a Marine Corps belt buckle is that it's a heck of a fraternity, especially for those of us who've shared things in really tough times. And so I was fortunate enough to meet Dan Pultz, and I'd like you to come up later on and read Dan's plaque here, because Dan was a Pittsburgh guy, and Dan was a team leader for 77 sessions of Simplify Odyssey volunteer. But that was only a small amount of what Dan did. Dan brought a lot of people in from Pittsburgh to help, even brought donors in and whatnot to help. And one of the important things he brought in were people he was in combat with, one of whom stands next to me here. And Dan, as a second lieutenant, brand new second lieutenant, that's one thing I'm going to have to share with my grandson. My grandson is going to be the same age as he, and he could be in combat just like Dan was. His first combat, he lost 14 men in one battle with Gatlin's Corner. The company commander was killed. Everybody was wounded except Dan and one other officer. So they're the only officer standing at the end of that battle. And so they built a real connection later in life. And Paul here, he looks like he should be a bookkeeper in some corporation, you know. He doesn't look like a stud that ran 250 patrols in Vietnam. Damn. I have a hard time saying that. 250 patrols in Vietnam. Well, anyway, Dan brought all these guys in. And so when we started recognizing people, this pavilion was called the Blimp at first. Ben Lim was a senior counselor when we built the pavilion. So it was Ben Lim Pavilion. They called it the Blimp. Well, give me a break. You're not going to be calling my pavilion a Blimp. And so we called it the Legacy Pavilion. Because we thrive at Outdoor Odyssey because of legacy that people leave. On my wall out there, they got me echoed something as I've said many, many times, that the energy I give is the inspiration I provide. It leads to the impact I make and leads to the legacy I leave. And I'm not talking about names on the walls or whatnot. I'm just talking about the legacy we leave with kids. How we change lives. how somebody cared for you and puts their arms around you and holds you and helps you and whatnot will change your life. And I see out here a lot of potential givers, and I see a lot of givers. And so what I wanted to do, we had a celebration 2 years ago when I got a chance to have the families of the first people. Mike Walker, when I made the first presentation about Outdoor Odyssey, I was competing with 4 nonprofits. I wrote a SPIAC, and all I said is, you know anybody in the Marine Corps that's a lawyer? I asked a friend. And I went downtown, Johnstown, and met Mike Walker. And Mike Walker served us till his death. In fact, Mike Walker served us up until a week before his death. The last time I talked to Mike Walker, he never charged us a cent. He helped us out with many, many scrapes initially at the time. Shortly after I started Outdoor Odyssey, I gave a speech at the Congressional Breakfast Club in Capitol Hill. This guy comes up to me afterwards, and if I talk about anything, I'm going to bring up Outdoor Odyssey. My speech was not about Outdoor Odyssey. My speech was about leadership, and I brought up Outdoor Odyssey. The guy comes to me and says, I live in Greensburg. I want to be part of what you do. And that was a guy over here named Dick Jones. Dick Jones flew over 200 combat missions in Vietnam. He went back, a Naval Academy graduate. He went back and became a financier, made big bucks. He had a house on the eastern shore of right down from the Academy, eastern shore of Maryland. But he had a heart. He's so huge, and he wanted to give to other people. And he served us. He served us for years. And so by surprise, we put Dan up here, the Battle of Gutland's Corner. So we surprised Dan that day, 2 years ago. And so I wanted to, I think it was because of Doug told me, because Dan was up for him, struggling a little bit of medical. I said, hey, let's honor Dan when we can, because we know how much legacy he's left here. And so what I wanted to do after that, is my point was that we will fill the pillars up. Now, I told you about what I'm going to become, yes? They're going to put me in ammo cam when I go, and they're going to duct tape me to the back of a Ranger, and they're going to drive around the camp, and one of these counselors will have to do it, because they drive like a bat out of hell anyway. And so I'll be sprinkled all over the place. And then we'll go to the chow hall, and I'll have a change of command, and I will take over for Spiker. And all the future Ghost Stories counselors will be about T.S. Young. You don't know 5431, you better watch out. So that'll be, so I can see the audience. I can see legacy guys on these pillars. What they've done to other people. So what I wanted to do, I had a dream this summer of bringing Paul up here, dream Jim McClanahan up here, and Doc Behrens up here. Doc Behrens was a surgeon in that same battalion, 3-9. And so I wanted to honor them in person. Well, we had Paul for sure coming, and we had Jim coming. Jim's wife fell down last week and broke her femur. And so he lives in Pittsburgh, he can't be here. Doc Behrens lives in Casper, Wyoming. He flew here many times to be a team leader at his own expense. Paul came down here many times at his own expense. And it gives me great honor, Paul, that we can honor you in person. You talk about a guy that's changed lives of veterans. The guys who think that they were through hell and back and they're going to let PTSD change their life. And you could not run 250 patrols while having PTSD. I guarantee you. But when you see success stories, people who learn to overcome it, it's pretty neat. Yes? Hoorah? So what? I want to read Jim McClanahan first. I'm going to say Paul for last. Jim McClanahan, this guy is, he looked old, but he's probably 30. He's about 85 now, but he's been many sessions up there. I put down a Marine, a warrior, a gentleman of first order, beloved Semper Fi Odyssey team leader, ubiquitous, this means always, 3-2-1 in War and Peace. You mentors sure know what 3-2-1 is, right? I love you, genuine concern, and humility, yes?
Yes, sir.
Rounds always on target. Jim was an artillery guy. Rounds always on target. Everybody who's a Marine knows what I mean. He always made a difference. His legacy lives. Over the other pillar here, I had Doc Behrens. He was a orthopedic surgeon. And he could talk the legs off a table, hands off a clock, and wings off a bat. And sometimes I had to find a reason why I could walk away from him because, holy crap. But the combat doc of 3-9 Harriers. Paul was a 3-9 Marine, 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines. Wow, what they did. And they did it in Iraq and Afghanistan too, guys. Eagle, Golden Anchor, turned in combat. Palpable, genuine concern, impact countless warriors at Simplify and beyond. His legacy lives. I hope one day before Jerry Behrens dies that he or some of his family members can read that plaque. Here's Paul. I love the guy. He never gave up on anybody. He never gave up on anybody. He put his PTSD in a container, and it probably affected him every day of his life. Everybody that died, he probably still got him in his life somewhere. But he went on to do big things as a civilian, and he certainly did big things for us. Paul, what I said about you, a Gatlin's Corps Marine, God almighty, that means powerful stuff. Led countless patrols in combat, led countless warriors in peacetime. Team leader extraordinaire. His legacy lives. And what I want to do, if I find the right pocket, you know what this is, right? Constitution. Smaller than a checkbook. The most important part of the Constitution is one sentence, yes? One sentence. 8 action verbs. Last 2 we set aside, ordained and established. But the first 6 are our responsibility. Every one of us here. You kids, our responsibility. Because if we don't do one of these first 6 action verbs, the object thereof, then somebody else is going to carry out our pack. You guys going to hike yet? Going to go on a hike this week? You don't want to carry somebody else's pack. We want them to carry their own weight in society, yes? So we started last year, Paul, making people givers. And this star that on a flag that's flown over outdoor Odyssey. On the back of the flag is a preamble. And people have been joining me over the 27 years. You need coins. David Zilli from Greenburg, Salem, he has harped on that for every time I see him, you need coins. Well, I want something you can put in your pocket. You can pull it out. You can share with somebody. Our job is to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and last of all, probably more important, secure the blessing of liberty. If this is not the blessing of liberty, I'm a tall person. All these people together to honor one of our own. You couldn't do it in many countries, could you guys? We've been in countries you couldn't do this. But Paul, you're certainly a giver. And 3, 2, 1 for sure. All right.
Thank you so much.
You want to make a speech or you just...
I'd like to say a few words.
Please.
If General Jones would have given me a list of names of all the people that contributed to the success of what goes on up here, I would have known only a small fraction of those people. So I could have rated a few of those people in terms of what their contributions have been to the success of what goes on up here. And if my name had been on it, and I compared me against the people that I do know, okay, on that list, and what they contributed, I honestly would have viewed my contributions would have paled in comparison to what so many of them have given to this organization up here. So I'm really honored, okay, to be honored on this particular day. Okay, I never expected this, and it's a very humbling experience for me. Okay. In my mind, in the back of my mind, okay, my participation up here has a lot to do with my time in the Marine Corps. All right, you know, from the time I took some leadership positions when I was in the Marine Corps, every day, okay, it was always accomplish the mission and bring people back. Okay, and I practiced that for a full 13 months when I was over there. This is kind of an extension of it, okay? I would say that I would cross out to bring people back, okay? And say,
You made many better than process, Paul. You made many better than process. That's what you're doing now. You're bringing them back. You're making them better. You're giving them a chance to be Americans and whatnot.
right. In other words, don't leave anybody behind. And I think that really what goes on here is we're really trying to help people. Okay, we don't want to leave anybody behind. And that's my viewpoint in terms of why I've contributed to this particular program and why I've tried to have been some help. Certainly, in my retirement years, this has been a blessing for me. Okay, it's given me another focus. Yeah, and many times it makes me think back to those days, those heartbreaking days when we would lose Marines. Okay, and I always wonder if we couldn't have done better, couldn't have made better decisions, and maybe more of them would be with us today. And so I just wanted to continue on that legacy, okay, in the hopes that we should not leave anybody behind. Okay, people are struggling. Okay, there's nothing more heartbreaking to me than to sit around at a table of service members, okay, who have given so much to their country, okay, and yet when they come back, they can't reintegrate back into society. What a shame. Okay, they raise their hand, to preserve, protect, and defend, okay, but when they come back to what they protected, they can't participate in it. They're struggling. And that's always been very, very heartbreaking to me. So, once again, thank you so much for the consideration, okay, and hopefully there are so many other people that I know of, okay, that one day their names will be up on some of the pillars at this particular building, okay, because it really all works like the general says, okay, with people that have some experience.
Shake his hand till it hurts. Let's come up here.
He's going to shake some hands, chat, and we'll get some of these young guys.